Good evening, everyone. My name is Vanna Rave. Welcome to the Tribal Candidate Forum. The Native American Contemporary Issues students collaborated and organized this evening's event. This forum provides the candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves and discuss topics and concerns of the tribal membership. In order for this evening proceedings to run efficiently, we have some ground rules. Number one, both questions and answers cannot exceed 2 minutes. Number two, please be respectful and do not interrupt anyone. Number three, no foul language. I have asked Kenny Mallory to start our opening prayer.
Okay, let's pray. Lord of love and Father of forgiveness, thank you for allowing us to be part of this beautiful day. May we have been able to add to the beauty of it by the way we treated people around us, even if it may have been a stranger. Lord, we live in a world where there's so much greed, hatred, injustice, political correctness, that sometimes we forget our responsibilities to our brothers and sisters. Lord, often as Native people, we lament over living conditions, over health and education conditions that have been violated by tribal treaties, and also not having a share of this nation's prosperity. Lord, but you know these issues even before we come to you. You also know what's best for us. Be with us tonight as we discuss the past, present, and future of this tribe. Lord, we have so much to be thankful for. Just help us to see it in front of us and use it to better the lives of all of our people. Lord, this we pray in your precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Kenny. Jessica will now ask the first question.
All right, the first question's gonna go to Louis. So the effects of historical trauma are evident in our community. What is your definition of historical trauma? Do you believe it is the root of some of our issues today? If elected, what steps would you take to support and raise awareness for the public health issue? And what will you do to make sure all people dealing with mental health have a life-saving treatment they need?
I don't know the definition. I know the experience is when something happens in today's world that brings up pain from the past. It's real, and it impacts Native Americans for problems we had in the early 1900s and further back. The pandemic today reminds us of the smallpox that was given to us in blankets and the impact it had on the tribe. I've had personal experience. I was in South Dakota and I had a buffalo bone that children play with. And I was taking stuff out of my pocket and I put that buffalo bone down. The Sioux woman saw it. She said, "What is that?" And she took it and started to cry. Started to laugh. Went through the whole range of emotions. And I brought out the pain that you guys can laugh and cry about it. That it's a longer story, but once you got through, I was a mediator. I learned to listen. Once you got through, she went to give it back to me. I said, that's yours. It was meant for you. Keep it. And she acted like a little girl.
All right. The effects of historical trauma are evident in our community. What is your definition of historical trauma? Do you believe it is the root of some of our issues today? If elected, what steps would you take to support and raise awareness for the public health issue? And what will you do to make sure all people dealing with mental health have a life-saving treatment they need?
Would you repeat it one more time? There was a lot in just the one question.
Okay. The effects of historical trauma are evident in our community. What is your definition of historical trauma? Do you believe it is the root of some of our issues today? If elected, what steps would you take to support and raise awareness for the public health issue? And what will you do to make sure all people dealing with mental health have a life-saving treatment they need?
Well, for one thing, I think long-lasting public trauma to Native American people is not having a share of this country's prosperity. We lack in every area: education, health, the future and the betterment of this tribe. And I think the only way we can overcome it is to educate our people to be able to deal with it. And I think with the kind of people that the colleges are putting out, Indian colleges, and the kind of programs that HCI has, where it has internships and all that kind of stuff, I think those people that come out of those situations are going to be the one to move us ahead and help develop ourselves, and not count on the government to continue the past trauma that they've inflicted on Native American people. That's one of the biggest issues to me. I believe this tribe is on the edge of stepping completely out of that trauma and the need for the government to support us in any area. We look at all the things that are happening in our community, and I may say good fortune that's coming our way, but a lot of it's been good planning and good leadership and hiring good people to fill positions that better the life of our people. I can only see nothing but prosperity down the road. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running again for the council, is because I'd like to be a decision maker when it comes to how we're going to pass out our prosperity to each and every individual and to each and every family. Thank you.
So, Isaac, the effects of historical trauma are evident in our community. What is your definition of historical trauma?
Well, to me, historical trauma it goes back from when we started being here on creation, just because of the situation that we've been put in, and then when the Machares came over here, and then all the stuff that took place from there. One of the big things is that as we were moving and being moved, was a lot along the way. We lost a lot of people, and a lot of things went on there. There's a lot of teaching, songs, language, words. All those things were kind of misplaced along the way, and so today we're struggle with those. And one of the big things is that we got to be able to bring those back, and the only way we're going to bring those back is through the power of prayer, through fasting, different ceremonies, those kind of things. One of the things that with the mental health awareness that you're asking about, each one of our children in these homes are in environments that aren't healthy for them. So it begins at home, but then it's also been in the parents, because of the parents been into situations and just kind of dealt an ugly hand. And so they try to do the best they can, but at the same time, it's how do we stop that trend? And the only way that we're going to be able to stop that trend is probably through spirituality and believing in each other and helping one another, being good to one another. Those kind of things. Today, as a village, as a tribe, we sure lack in those things. There's different families and different groups that are pretty strong in those teachings, but today we have a lot of our people, younger generation, that struggle with attention span, struggle with the wandering of the mind, struggle with not being active and doing these certain things that are going to be able to push those kind of thoughts and feelings out of your mind, and then being able to set up a support system that can help them out. So those are some of the thoughts. There's more to it, but I just wanted to share that much with you guys.
Okay, Monka. Okay, the effects of historical trauma are evident in our community. What is your definition of historical trauma? If elected, what steps would you take to support and raise awareness for the public health issue?
It's a good question. Well, historical trauma it's not it's historic as a root, but it is present in our families, in our houses, in our organizations. And if I were to sum it up, it's a culture of abuse, self-abuse, because of the historical trauma. So what we're seeing is different forms of self-abuse that was taught to us when our people were put into those mission schools. They call them schools, and they really shouldn't even be called that. It was an actual funded policy to destroy our peoples, our language, our culture, and our history, our true identity, and to rip the fabric of our family and kinship apart, which is the essence of our being, to be a Wankshik, to be a human being. And so today, what we're seeing is the manifestations of that. We have a word in Ho-Chunk, Wanoskuni we, to be well holistically in all the ways that wellness takes its form. And that's the type of thinking that needs to happen for us to develop a Wanoskuni we strategic plan to address that for our community. And what I would envision is, that we need to zero in on the individual families and figure out how to strengthen the families and support the families in that wellness process. And that's going to take a lot of different forms. And I agree with Isaac. It is central that it begins with the reconnection and reclaiming of our spiritual existence as part of the creation. That's why we have a Ho-Chunk word to describe our existence. Wankshik. We're not Indians. We're not their Indian. We're not any other labels. We're Wankshiks first in the creation. And that's what we need to focus on. And I think that that's part of our wellness. If we're going to, I just think that to address that issue, it's an important one because it's real. And we need to attack it front on. So I think your time's up here. So
Thank you.
keep going on. I can go on for days if you want.
For real.
I know.
All right, Rona. What is your definition of historical trauma? If elected, what steps would you take to support and raise awareness for this public health issue?
Just to touch on what everybody around this table, knows about the historical trauma of, the boarding schools, of, having to, there are a few that had to grow up in group homes and such that you've lost touch with your culture and your who you are, who you identify as, and it just goes down the line, from generation to generation that you sometimes you don't know where you belong, and sometimes when you don't, there's just a lot of things that you can't identify as where you come from, that it becomes into, lateral violence, bullying at school, just no sense of belonging, so it just turns into not being accepted, mentally, physically sometimes, and even spiritually. So to be able to solve this issue, we need to, come up with different mental plans. We need to hire actual Native American counselors to battle this, to help people heal, and to help people to be able to be successful in this community and be accepted. Because we are one people, we are one tribe, we all work together. So to be able to work together, we all need to heal together. So that's kind of part of my plan, is to help find qualified mental professionals to Native American who understand our culture to heal our community. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So now we're going to move on to the second question, and this one's going to start with you, Kenny. What could you do to help the off-reservation members struggling to move home to Winnebago?
What was it again?
What could you do to help the off-reservation members struggling to move home to Winnebago?
Kind of a simple question, really. Don't take a long 2-minute answer. Build facilities, homes, and places for them to live, and jobs to go to, which I see really taking place now. You look at the north side of town, there's a whole new village there. People are gonna wanna come home to that. That's gonna create jobs. You've got this main highway going through here. You've got all kinds of construction going on. And we just need to develop the opportunity for those that wanna come back. And that opportunity is there. It's not on the horizon. It's here today. People that want to come home, I would encourage them to come home, because I think within the next 2, 3, 4 years, there's going to be opportunity for anybody that wants to come home. But I would hope that they would all want to come home with good intentions too.
All right. Isaac, what could you do to help the off-reservation members struggling to move home to Winnebago?
Well, one of the big things is to contact them first, right? Common sense, and then to reach out and see what all it is that they're in stand of need of, and then to try to develop a plan of trying to get them in here. One of the struggles that the tribe has is housing issues and having enough available houses here. So there's kind of two things there: how to get them home, and who's going to pay for it, how much stuff do they have, and then where are you going to put them once you're able to bring them home. So you got to solve one, and you can't solve one without the other, right? So the only way is to start looking at a quicker way to build houses, a quicker way to make it available so they can come home. Just imagine how strong we would be if we had all the tribal members that did live on the reservation, or that chose to live on the reservation. We'd have a lot of people here, you know. We'd probably have a big powwow and everything. But one of the things that you could look at is affordable housing. What kind of money do they have, and what can they afford as far as housing? and then try to work with them there. So it'd almost be like developing a department or team to actually start reaching out to these tribal members and saying, hey, how much can you help yourself and how much do you need help with? And then developing a plan, and then coming back, visiting the table, getting everybody to agree on that plan, and then executing it. And so those are some of the things that we face and we continue to face, even though we've been working on them for several years. But slowly getting there. But some of the stuff that goes along with that is being able to finance all of this and to pay for everything, basically. So it's reaching out to them first, seeing what kind of situation they're in.
Monka, what could you do to help the off-reservation members struggling to move home to Winnebago?
The central question there is the unification of our people. And in 1934, the United States government came around with these Moose Lodge charters, fraternal documents that many Native nations rejected, but many accepted as their governing documents. And within those governing documents, there's this language of divide and conquer. And in our own constitution, we exclude and discriminate against our own tribal citizenry, which is counterintuitive to Ho-Chunguta cultural values. And we don't allow them to vote. We discriminate. Nationally, 60 to 70% of Native people live in cities. That's been going up. The reason? Because that's where the infrastructure is, and that's where the homes are and the jobs and services, for that matter. But what we would do is just simply what we've been doing, and that is to continue to expand the housing. But we need to make sure we're assuming that they want to come home. I think at a minimum, we need to change our constitution to allow them to vote so that they feel included and they feel connected in a sense of belonging, and reconnect to that cultural value and get rid of this value system that's somebody else's, that's used to divide and conquer our people. But certainly jobs, to me, that's easy. We could create jobs, but you're going to have to make sure that we've got the foundational housing for them as well. And that's pretty easy. I mean, I was only on for 5 months, but we got that initiated. We actually made a motion to force Ho-Chunk Inc. to come up with a plan in 45 days, but they did it in 30, to expand housing, and we've been building housing ever since. But I think we need to revisit that and get a little more aggressive so that we can expand the housing stock across our within our treaty boundaries. But there's a lot to that, actually, but I think in a nutshell, and we need what I would call the Ho-Chunk Equal Opportunity Employment Act to ensure that they have a direct link to job employment and that their rights are protected while they work for our organizations. So we need to make sure, too, that they have that base of employment and protection under our law.
Rona, what could you do to help the off-reservation members struggling to move home to Winnebago?
And within the last year that I've been here and seeing, how many people, struggle with their bills, just general daily living, it's going to come down to, educating people on how to be successful or how to, find a good job to be able to provide for themselves. The council here, we're always talking about we're going to take care of our people, we're going to take care of our people. But there's a point when we got to stop enabling them and start helping them to be a successful member of our community. And by providing homes, that'll be affordable homes, different programs that they'll be able to purchase homes. We talked a lot about, the rent to own. At this point, a lot of our homes are, upper level or low income. There's nothing in the median for those struggling to find a home on the reservation. If they want to come home, I'm sure we can build it. But it's about being able to provide an affordable home or affordable program that they can they can qualify for, to be able to make a mortgage, to pay their rent, to buy food on a table. And so part of the programming that I would like to see started is, more financial education classes on mortgage, on credit building, all of that. That just needs to be a part of a daily living. And I'd like to see that started at the high school level. Financial responsibility. What do you need to do to be successful? And we just go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Louis, what could you do to help the off-reservation members struggling to move home to Winnebago?
It's a tough question. We got to buy more land. We got to increase our land base so we have sites that are available to tribal people. But we've got to look at the issue of industry. We've got to locate or find some industry that can provide high-level jobs for our people. The young kids are getting smarter. They're coming back from 4-year institutions with degrees. And we have to have employment that will match their wages that they should be getting. It's difficult to live on a restaurant waitress wages. We can't get people at casino to work in a restaurant. We're having problems, and we've got to solve them.
Thank you, Louis. All right. The next question is going to go to Isaac. All right. Enrolled tribal members that do not live on a reservation want to be active and included in the community, such as wanting to participate in things that affect the community, such as voting. What is your stance on this, and what would you do in terms of changing this dilemma?
I didn't even say anything. You guys started my time. No. Can I get those 5 seconds back? One of the things is that a lot of the tribal members that are off-res, they seem to be wanting to come back here, move back here, and then participate. And one of the big things that I kind of look at, some of the things that we have already built in the tribe is transportation, just far as Sioux City. But there's a lot of tribal members up there, and there's some that are off-res, but is being able to get the message out when these things are occurring, and kind of giving them ahead of time so they could make their way back here and be a part of that. Myself, there was a lot of talk before about giving the off-tribal members voting rights, and I don't see anything wrong with that, as long as you was to design a plan that would work for here for Winnebago. You can't just throw something together, as far as verifying that they're enrolled members and those kind of things. There's a lot of different little issues with that, but I'm just saying that because of some of the stuff that was brought up when they start thinking about this idea a while back. But if we look at Ho-Chunk Nation, some of their stuff that they're doing would actually work for here too. And so some of the answers and tools that we have here, they're sitting right in front of us, and we're failing to pick those up and utilize them. Some of these problems that the tribe has are quick fixes and easy fixes, but we just don't want to get together, communicate, and put those things together. So it's kind of like we've become our worst enemy. We've become our biggest obstacle is ourselves. And so once we can get past that and look forward down the road, then a lot of these problems will be able to get solved. So it's just back to, again, it's working together.
All right. Okay. Monka, Enrolled tribal members that do not live on the reservation want to be active and included in the community, such as wanting to participate in things that affect the community, such as voting. What is your stance on this, and what would you do in terms of changing this dilemma?
I would write a proposal and bring it, of course, we need to get the community involved in making that decision, but I support extending voting privileges to our citizenry and change the word membership to citizens, Ho-Chungatta citizens, because we're a nation. And so we need to be thinking in that context, and any policy or law that exists that is divisive, to divide our people as a form of colonization, is to dismantle that system so that we can strengthen our sovereignty and fulfill the vision that our people had for us, to be free and independent, self-sufficient, and not beholden to others. But we need to take the action to reconnect our people so they have a sense of belonging, and so that they know that their voice matters and that their input matters. And amending the Constitution is an amendment process, and that is what I would support and push forward, is actually a constitutional convention, so that we can identify what we need to amend in that Constitution to strengthen our native nation, the Ho-Chungatta, and to strip away those elements that have been designed to keep us at bay with one another. Get rid of that stuff, because that is part of the historical trauma too. But I entirely support that, extending those voting privileges to our citizenry and making sure that happens, among other things.
Rona, enrolled tribal members that do not live on the reservation want to be active and included in the community, such as wanting to participate in the things that affect the community, such as voting. What is your stance on this, and what would you do in terms of changing this dilemma?
Well, first of all, they're always welcome in the community. This is one thing that it's just a collaboration of everything. To be welcome, you have to have housing, you work, be here closely, education, to be felt welcome, because as a young person coming and living off the reservation, born and raised Chicago, come home to the homelands when I was 9 years old. It was culture shock to me, and I'm sure I know how some of these people feel. You come here, and they're like, "Oh, you're from the city. Oh, you don't belong here." But my family goes back, 5-6 generations, probably all the way back, to when they first moved here, and so we need to change that mindset so that everybody's accepting of everybody's vote. And I'm sure we are able to do it, just like, the Ho-Chunks do. They have a system. They have districts that they can create, and we could probably create it. A radius around the United States, where do you live at? And then have, one person in each district that could bring forth those votes and their concerns. But it's going to be a long process, and I'm accepting of all tribal members and their vote and their right to know what's going on and be accepted in this community, because we are all on one people. Thank you.
Louis, enrolled tribal members that do not live on the reservation want to be active and included in the community, such as wanting to participate in things that affect the community, such as voting. What is your stance on this, and what would you do in terms of changing this dilemma?
I'm one that came back. I was rejected. As a kid in school, I got teased because I was dark. I'm dark because I'm not much white. I grew up on a reservation where the half-breeds would look down on them. It was different here. But we got to remember that people that left here left for a better life. Some of them didn't find it. They want to come back. And we have to open the door for them. There are people. There are relatives. When we were working on the Winnebago claims from the U.S. Claims Commission, the Winnebagos from Wisconsin met with us. It's the Marina Inn. And we drafted a resolution that said Wisconsin Winnebagos and Nebraska Winnebagos are one people. We're one people. And we have to respect them and put together a plan to bring them into the circle. So I'm in favor of it, but we got to plan it out. So they're going to add to our school that's looking good now. It's going to be obsolete real quick when we have an influx of people. But we've got to use all of our skills to meet the needs of people coming to the reservation.
Okay. Kenny? Did I ask you this one yet? I don't think
No,
I think
you
I started with
started
Isaac.
with-
Okay. So, enrolled tribal members that do not live on a reservation want to be active and included in the community, such as wanting to participate in things that affect the community, such as voting. What is your stance on this, and what would you do in terms of changing this dilemma?
I can understand why they want to be active in the community, especially when we're on the verge of breaking through when it comes to future prosperity here. And I really believe, I always have believed that they should, as close as they are in the Sioux City area, should have a right to vote here on elections or whatever matter. However, I have a problem with the ones that live in Oklahoma, in Minnesota, in North Carolina, and states way beyond our borders being able to vote. Because if they're able to vote, they're also able to run for political positions with this tribe. And if they run for political positions, how are they going to make it to council meetings? And do we pay their mileage to and from where they live? It's a problem, and it's a question I don't have an answer to. But I certainly believe that the surrounding area, those Winnebago people should be able to be part of the activities that go on here. We do make it possible when it comes to per cap and stimulus checks and stuff like that. We do make that possible for almost all of our tribal members that we have on record. But the question that bothers me is, how do we extend that to Indians or Native Americans that live 800-900 miles away from here? I think that's a problem. I honestly don't know how to answer it, but for the local Native Winnebagos, I certainly think they have a right to be involved in it. They could make it here for meetings. They would know what's going on a daily basis. That's my feeling.
Thank you, Kenny. So we're going to start with the next question. So this one, we'll start with you, Monka. With the new casinos being built in the Omaha and Lincoln communities, what plans do you have to ensure that people from the Winnebago Tribe work at these new institutions?
I'm glad you asked that question. That question is connected to a lot of concerns of mine. And I've come up with an idea and a solution. We need to enact the first Ho-Chunk Equal Opportunity Employment Act. And within that design of that tribal law under our sovereign powers, civil regulatory powers, we can use our own law to make sure that our people have a direct line of opportunity. We're seeing a high number of people graduate from high school, higher than historically, and go to college and graduate. We're also seeing people garner more skills in trade skills, and we need to provide them a direct opportunity. In addition to that, we need to be thinking about establishing what's missing from what's called the Native Nation Research model, Native Nation Building model. And that's investing in individual tribal entrepreneurs that have that entrepreneurial spirit. And we need to allocate resources to ensure that they have a direct opportunity to create their own businesses and serve our own businesses. And so that way we put the emphasis on the individual spirit that wants, the Ho-Chunk that wants to do something for themselves and they can support their families. But the Ho-Chunk Equal Opportunity Employment Act will also include language that would protect the rights of our Ho-Chunk citizens within our organizations. So no more of this divisiveness of just chopping people off and firing people. We will create a process of fairness that allows them some protection within our organizations. And that, the title of that act is the Ho-Chunk Equal Opportunity Employment Act. That's my answer to that question. That's a good one. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
asking it.
Rona, with the new casinos being built in the Omaha and Lincoln communities, what plans do you have to ensure that people from the Winnebago Tribe work at these new institutions?
I believe starting up with the Little Priest and with the education department and creating programs that will teach them skills, hospitality skills, have dealing classes, have guest service skills, customer service skills, different little programs at Little Priest that I would like to see done. I know they tried to look at it before, but I would like to see that program up and running so that they would be guaranteed a job with these skills and so that they would maintain, you know, those entry level qualification skills to be working at these casinos. I know as far as Lincoln and Omaha, you know, those are casinos that are off reservation, and so there are different rules and policies that will apply to those. You know, the different partnerships that we have with those. Some of those we can ask, you know, about equal opportunity employment, or you know, what type of recommendations will they have in those. But as far as ensuring that our students, or our employees, or our community members would qualify is to come up with casino gaming, or you know, just like trade skills, but you know, casino skills and maintaining, you know, management of casino and gaming opportunities. So that's what I would like to see, and hopefully get started and working with Little Priest on that. Thank you.
Okay, Louie. With the new casinos being built in the Omaha and Lincoln communities, what plans do you have to ensure that people from the Winnebago tribe work at these new institutions?
We're in control. You can set the standards. You gotta let the Winnebago students know that we expect them to rise to the level of those standards. And they can do it. We gotta push for the brightest, most educated students to participate in the management and making decisions for the casinos. So we learn how. We're playing the white man's game. We gotta beat him at his own game. We can rise to that level. Auntie Kelsey. Auntie is the person that rose to that level. We can do it. But we've got to use the base, the little priest, tribal college, to get people moving. I have a granddaughter that's going to college. She's only in high school. I was shocked to find out her grades. They were good, better than mine. We got young people doing things that I never thought of. And we can be proud. But we've got to let them know what we expect of them. Because we can do it.
Okay, thank you, Louis. All right, Kenny. With the new casinos being built in the Omaha and Lincoln communities, what plans do you have to ensure that people from the Winnebago tribe work at these new institutions?
I'm just chomping at the bits to answer that question. I really think the casino that's going to be built in South Sioux will compensate for all the Winnebago people that want to work. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a big place, and I don't think there's enough Winnebagos to work up there. That's how I feel about that. I'm not worried about Indians getting down to Omaha or Lincoln to work, not when them same job opportunities are just 16 miles up the road. I do, however, have a concern for the Winnebagos that live in the Omaha and Lincoln area, and I hope and I can't imagine those casino managers not giving Winnebagos in those two cities the opportunities to work in their own enterprises.
Thank you, Kenny. All right, Isaac. With the new casinos being built in the Omaha and Lincoln communities, what plans do you have to ensure that people from the Winnebago tribe work at these new institutions?
Well, that's kind of a simple question. It would basically go into whatever structure they developed so far up to this point here, going in and sitting down with that board or that committee or whatever it's rolled out to be called, sitting down with those people and then putting that process in the orientation where it's tribal member preference first. And like again, the tools are already here. We can copy some of that from the HR department as far as some of the policies and procedures that the tribe already has set up. You don't have to waste time on rewording things or anything like that. If it's good enough for here, then it should be good enough for over there, giving them first preference. And if our people want to work at these casinos, they're gonna fight to get there, you know. So that's a pretty simple question.
All right, thank you, Isaac. All right, for our next question, we're going to start with you, Rona. Youth leadership is on the rise all over Indian country, and our youth want their voices to be heard. Would you support expanding the council to include a member that is between the ages of 18 and 24?
That's a really good question.
What is the age? What is the
I would
age
support. I would support that, at least, one candidate, to bring the young voice to the table. As we were saying and talking about, we have more high school graduates that are going on to college and getting their education and learning, the different values of an education, that their voice, their young voice, and their opportunities that they've created for themselves off the reservation by attending college, and their learning experiences by having to be in work groups and study groups with all types of nationalities, is a great opportunity to bring to the table. Their business-wise, their education-wise, their financially wise. If you can make it through 4 years of college, working part-time, full with the family, they have the skills sets, and I would be open to having one, adding one or two of that age group to us. I think it would be a great asset. Thank you.
Thank you. Louis, youth leadership is on the rise all over Indian country, and our youth want their voices to be heard. Would you support expanding the council to include a member that is between the ages of 18 and 24?
Why aren't the youth asking that question? I haven't heard from the young people, but I've listened to it. I would look at 21 as a starter. Then you would let the people decide if a younger person is welcome. I came in as a young man, and I caught a lot of heat because I was not conventional. It said I thought like a white man. It was tough. But it can be done. And I challenge the young people to put your plan together and make an appeal to the tribe and to the council. I would support it. Well, I'd have to see what you're asking, have to know, and you've got to look at the history of the tribe. See how we handle young people. We talk a lot about the little priest, but we don't know much about his younger life, whether he struggled. He probably did. We have a lot of our history that we don't know. Well, it would be compelling to find an answer.
Okay.
I was the youngest chairman
Right.
in the country for one time.
Okay, Louis,
Okay.
time's up, sorry. Okay.
Just 2 minutes.
I'll give him a minute of mine.
Okay. Kenny, youth leadership is on the rise all over Indian country, and our youth want their voices to be heard. Would you support expanding the council to include a member that is between the ages of 18 and 24?
I wouldn't want to rush the issue, but I believe it's important that those people that are interested about that would start at a level of age to council members. I wouldn't mind at all if there were 4 aides that assisted council members in various jobs at whatever their appointments are. I had a grandson that was an aide for the senator from Nebraska out in Washington, D.C. And he was about 20 years old, and he learned a lot from that. But he admitted he's not in no position to be a political leader at that level yet. I don't think we should rush the issue, because then you won't get the genuine leadership that you really want. And I know there's some young people out there that if I was on a council, I'd like to have follow me around and see why I do what I do, maybe even off the job to some extent. But I think there's a place for them, but not as a council member at 18 years old.
All right, thank you, Kenny. Okay, Isaac. Youth leadership is on the rise all over Indian country, and our youth want their voices to be heard. Would you support expanding the council to include a member that is between the ages of 18 to 24?
Well, it's always been on the rise, and it seems like Winnebago's finally waking up and noticing it. One of the things was out in Washington, there was a a group of 6 kids that were out there, and they were on Capitol Hill, and kind of met them in a lobby and kind of noticed there was other Indians amongst us, and went over there and kind of was visiting with them and asked them, hey, what are you guys doing here, you know? That's when I went out for that to testify for the hospital and stuff. And so talking to their teacher, she went and said that she said, we start our little group in high school. She said, and they get to follow their council members clear out here to Washington. The council pays for them to come out here, and they sit in all these meetings and they see how it works. Everything from the top to the bottom, from the council meetings clear up to the whole Capitol Hill. And so I thought that was really neat. And then that part was tied into a part of their language. So one of their assignments that they had to do was go back and translate some of the things that they heard over there and put it in their own language. It was pretty neat. But yeah, I'm in support of it. There would have to be some things put in place as far as to protect those young people. You know, as far as if they made a mistake, how far could you overlook it, or what would the process be? So there's a lot behind that. But yeah, we have to teach our young people all these different processes. Not only the political stuff, but we also have to teach them language, culture, tradition, those kind of things too. So I'm in support of doing that. You know, it'd be something that would take a little bit of time to fine tune, and then to identify those students within the schools, within the colleges that would be able to come in and kind of get a handle of how things are, you know. So you could start them out as young staffers that could go around and help the council, so they take notes, they know how the structure of everything is. It would help out with communication and having things for them to do and help out with.
Thank you, Isaac. All right, Maunka. Youth leadership is on the rise all over Indian country, and our youth want their voices to be heard. Would you support expanding the council to include a member between the ages of 18 to 24?
I support any form of positive, healthy leadership development. What we're talking about, again, is we're talking about constitutional amendment. The age is 25, so the question is 18 to 24. Society allows people to sign up for the military, to go overseas, and to fight wars, and to kill other human beings. A violation of the natural laws. Age 21, we allow people to consume alcohol and poison to destroy themselves. The question speaks directly to something positive and healthy. Just 2 weeks ago, I watched four Ho-Chungato young ladies, ages 15, 16, and some juniors and seniors, advocate on behalf of all the rights of students at the Winnebago Public School Board meeting. One of them was Mahina and Lorelei Decora's granddaughter, Faith's daughter. I can tell you, I stood there silently, highly impressed. Here are these young people advocating with intelligence, articulation, and force to stand up and advocate for their rights as human beings, as Wonk Shiks. I respect that, highly respect that. I would support that, and I would help cultivate that. So ages 18 to 24, we're talking about a reunification and strengthening of our people, and a direct reflection of our cultural values in strengthening our nation. So yes, I think I would most certainly support allowing our, what we would think of chronologically, young people. But we have to remember that we're not just chronologically at that age. We're old spirits. We're survivors of this historical trauma. And that has taught us a lot about ourselves and how to survive. And so in a lot of ways, we're all old spirits. And I would support to bring that leadership to our sacred circle of decision making.
Okay. Thank you, candidates, for answering our questions. That was it for the students' questions. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back to the members' questions next.
Ooh, the good ones.
Member, there's no member.
You mean they're gonna ask us what our questions are?
No. I guess tribal membership. emailed
Oh,
and
oh,
did
oh.
questions. These were just the student
Oh,
ones
okay,
from that
okay.
student class. Got a lighter?
Man.
So we're gonna tailor that down. And that one too. And then the three. Your email. Whatever we have to. Let me see. Is that doable?
Okay, we're gonna start with Louis for this. This one's the public questions from the community. So Louis, the BIA evolved into a paternalistic authority in tribal self-governance. When and where does it go from here as a tribe, as tribes begin to practice self-sustainment in areas once administrated by the BIA?
I fought the battle with Eloise Cobell, and we won. And we got money to buy back land. And council gave it back. We had a land management program that was to enhance our abilities to develop purchase of land, and they shut it down. We have to put together a plan that's better than a BIA. We don't need a land management group that's a mini BIA. We need a land management group that's fighting for the tribe, fighting for the people to acquire back our land base. I told people one day that the largest land purchase in history for a reservation was ours. People say they give us this reservation. We bought it. We bought it from land that was paid for in Minnesota. I don't know of any other reservation that was purchased by the tribe. We did it twice when we bought the Wisconsin Clip. So I think we got to build a better system to analyze and purchase land because we need it. And we need it for the growth of the tribe. I'm done.
Okay, Kenny. The BIA evolved into a paternalistic authority in tribal self-governance. When and where does it go from here as tribes begin to practice self-sustainment in areas once administrated by the BIA?
Well, I believe the BIA has served its purpose, and it's time for this tribe to move on without their input or their assistance. One example is land management. You know, we got a farm program now that has educated good working people that can be farming all the land that the farmers are farming right now. The farmers lease that land, they raise a crop on there, they make good money off that crop, and they give some of it to the tribe. And I really feel that with the farm operations that we have now, all that land that's being leased out could be farmed by local Winnebago people that are educated in the agricultural business. And rather than splitting the money up between the farmer and leasing it out, it all comes to the tribe to pay out to the landowners. I just think the days for the BIA are numbered, and I would like to see the Winnebago tribe take over everything that goes on at the BIA. We don't need it anymore. We're sophisticated. We know where we're going, we know what we want, and it's ours in the first place. So I believe Winnebago people and educated people need to run that program. Every one of them.
Isaac, the BIA evolved into a paternalistic authority in tribal self-governance. When and where does it go from here as tribes begin to practice self-sustainment in areas once administrated by the BIA?
So one of the things is that what areas are we talking about, and then identifying those areas, and then moving forward with a plan of how we wanted, what the outcome is, and how we want that to look. You got to remember that there's a lot of tribal members that are out at the BIA, that work for the BIA. So when you start kind of saying things towards the BIA, you're kind of bashing our own people right off the bat. But again, looking at designing a plan in what areas, we can't take them on all at once, you know, that's just setting ourselves up to fail. But if we was able to go out there and even visit with those tribal employees and say, hey, where do you think would be the easiest to get the low-bearing fruit? Let's get that rolling and accomplish something. That would build motivation and morale amongst them. And then being able to sit down with the rest of the council and open that up for discussion. Those are some of the things, just the basic things. We're kind of jumping the gun on a lot of this stuff. There's a lot of time that went in to get us to this point here, but there is areas that we could probably look at and be able to get accomplished in a timely manner.
Thanks. Munka, the BIA evolved into a paternalistic authority in tribal self-governance. When and where does it go from here as tribes begin to practice self-sustainment in areas once administered by the BIA?
Our relative and genuine leader, one of our genuine leaders from that generation, Reuben Snake, talked about and articulated a vision of self-sufficiency and being independent and free people and not beholden to others. And there's a federal law called the Indian Self-Determination and Educational Assistance Act. And within that law, it grants the authority of Native nations to take control of these Bureau of Indian Affairs programs and services. And we will use that law just like we did in 2015 when we had a strategic planning session at the casino. The first thing I wrote on that board was compact the hospital under that law. And now the Treaty Hospital is now the 12 Clans Unity Hospital. We will continue to move to compact the Bureau of Indian Affairs away. Now in that process, to ease people's concerns, because we have our own citizens working for that federal agency, is that within that law it allows for those employees to join our new organization when we form that to take over those services and to manage those services. So that federal law allows that for us to design and manage it. And here's one of the other benefits. The other benefit is you're eliminating a bureaucratic layer, the Aberdeen Regional Office. They siphon off money. And so what happens is that under the compacting process is we directly negotiate with the United States Congress, and they take a small administrative fee out of Maryland. And then we get a bigger bag of funding, which would mean expanded services, higher paying jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And then we design the services under that federal law that grants that authority. So where does it stop? It starts actually with us moving to compact the Bureau of Indian Affairs and get what I call get the federal government out of our business in that context under that law.
Thank you. Rona, the BIA evolved into a paternalistic authority in tribal self-governance. When and where does it go from here as tribes begin to practice self-sustainment in areas once administered by the BIA?
Well, as Maunka stated, you have a Self-Determination Act that was put in place for us. And while working, off the reservation, down south, they did a lot of that with a lot of BIA funds that were ciphered through, Santa Fe or whatever. And they did collect a lot of what they call IDC, indirect costs. And so
Put your mic closer. Keep going. There you go.
And so through that, we can do the same thing. We can determine what programs we want and we can operate. We need to educate ourselves in how to do this and be what that Self-Determination Act is meant to do, is handle that money directly through treaties, that it comes direct to the tribe and we administer it how bureaucracy and all that stuff from DC and take over. You know, we can take over our police department, we can take over the Bureau of Indian Education Funds, we can take back our land issues, and not to be, you know, like Blanca said, not harm our tribal members that work with these departments, but work with them. And they probably bring a lot of experience to us that you know, I really want to see us take over on a lot of that stuff and be able to utilize our people that have the experience. So, but moving forward, I'm all for self-determination.
Thanks. All right, the next question, we're going to start with Kenny. Kenny, regarding the boarding school children that were recently found in Canada and America, my question is, do you think that is an important topic to discuss with the community members? How our ancestors were mistreated by the Catholic nuns and priests in the past?
Before I answer that question, I kind of want to back up, just make one comment. When doing away with the BIA, I certainly didn't mean the good people that work out there. I believe we could bring them into our system. No way would I want to lose the good people.
Mm-hmm.
So, having said that, I'll go on to the next question. I don't know how to give it an honest answer because I'm a product of the mission where missionaries came and took me off the streets of Winnebago, and I grew up at the shelter home. I don't think it made my life any worse than it is today. In fact, I think it's better because of it. But I also know the flip side of that because I had relatives that went to Genoa, and I know the stories they tell about how they were treated. You know, there's a lot of sad stories about Indians at boarding schools. But there's one really proud story of Indians at Carlisle. Years ago when Jim Thorpe and some of them Indian people were there, they were the scourge of the East when it came to playing football. They beat all these Ivy League schools, and they were just grade school boys. Granted, they might have been 21 or 22, but they were just grade school boys. So there's pride in some of that, but there's also a sinful nature in some of it. And that's the thing I think we have to think about, pray about, and most of all, forgive.
Thank you. Isaac, regarding the boarding school children that were recently found in Canada and America, my question, do you think that is an important topic to discuss with the community members? How our ancestors were mistreated by the Catholic nuns and priests in the past?
Yeah, I think it's a very important topic. One of the things that a lot of people don't know, but if you go up here to up on the hill here up to St. Augustine's, there's a area up there that things happened up there. And today there's still spirits and little things that go on up there if you talk to some of the staff that work in some of those buildings. One of the things that went on was one of the teachers, when Head Start was located up there, they took the kids on a nature walk. Kind of walked back towards the north into somewhat of the timbers, and all the children stopped and they looked, and they said, there's some Indians down there, they got fires going. And so that teacher said, let's go back to the classroom, and they took them back to the classroom and had those kids, them little kids, draw pictures of what they seen. And what they drew was, they drew a little village over there. And so if you look at and you go back and backtrack our own history here in Winnebago, it happened right here. Some of that stuff was actually in the college. Before they did the renovation of the college, the janitor closets that sat on each side of the steps had 2 2x4s in there, and those were the coat racks. And some of those had the children's names on them. Working up there before, seeing some of those things and looking in some of the glass doors and the reflections, a lot of that, there's a lot right here in our own home. That stuff went on. The other thing is that I got the honor and privilege to travel with Jim Wanagita, and we went down there to Genoa, and we found a lot of things that our relatives back here, the names, the lists, and stuff like that. And when you walk into that atmosphere down there, it's a real it's a real sad energy that it gives off, and so it kind of put a lump in your throat. But there's stuff right here in Winnebago that we need to educate our own people on.
Thank you. Moonka, regarding the boarding school children that were recently found in Canada and America, my question, do you think that is an important topic to discuss with the community members? How our ancestors were mistreated by the Catholic nuns and priests in the past?
Pope Alexander VI in 1493 wrote what's called a papal bull. And it's essentially church law, Christian law, which has found its way into the United States Supreme Court seminal case Johnson v. McIntosh of 1823. It's called the Doctrine of Discovery, or the Christian Doctrine of Discovery. And that is the foundational policy that still stands today. It's an actual declaration of war against non-Christians. And in the Pope's own writings, to vanquish non-Christians, to take their properties, goods, and service, and their property and their goods for their own use and for their own profit. That's why we have historical trauma. So to answer that question, we need to understand that historical root, and we need to confront it. It's not just the Catholic Church, it's the Christian denominations as well that have been involved in the genocidal policies against our peoples. That's a fact. And so we just need to be honest about that. Now, we all grew up around that religion. We know all about it. It's in our families, all of that. So we, as part of the healing process, we need to confront that and be honest about it. And the people that ascribe to that belief system, they have to process that in their own healing process on their own. But as a Native nation, if we're going to strengthen ourselves and be well, Wanuskuniwi, we need to confront those sort of things. And we need to be honest about it. And we need to acknowledge it. So I can only imagine, think about all of those children that didn't have a voice, right? Mm-hmm. They probably, and we're just going to continue to find more of them. We should be thinking about doing a ceremony for all these children. Maybe they didn't have Ho-Chunk names. Maybe we need to be giving them names, and we need to strengthen and reconnect those family ties. That's why what Isaac's talking about, they're wandering around. They never got those ceremonies to cross over. And so we have a duty as leaders to make sure that that happens from a cultural context. I would support anything that we do like that to heal those families and heal those children, our relatives.
Thank you. Rona, regarding the boarding school children that were recently found in Canada and America, do you think that is an important topic to discuss with the community members? How our ancestors were mistreated by the Catholic nuns and priests in the past?
I think it is a very important issue, and how we can heal this generational trauma, the lateral violence that we see, on a daily, throughout the United States, not just within the reservations, but everywhere. And we're very fortunate that we didn't become slaves like some of these other nationalities. And I just remember a story, my pop used to tell me when she had to go to school, I asked her, how come you never taught us Ho-Chunk? And she's like, because I never wanted to see you guys singing bubbles coming out of your mouth. She said, that's what happened to me. My mouth was washed out with soap. So it's kind of like they were washing away your culture, washing away your language, washing away your spirituality. Although she taught me to pray everywhere, and that's how I heal. No matter where I'm at, I pray. I don't belong to one denomination or one religion. I'm just hopeful that, the Creator hears our prayers every day. And through healing and praying, we do need to bring that back, into our homes and our culture and our community, and be able to help these children find their way home. Up on a hill or across the United States. I am for and being able to start that healing process anybody and everybody that's wanting to do it. And B, all about forgiveness. Forgive but never forget.
Thank you. Louis, regarding the boarding school children that were recently found in Canada and America, do you think that it's an important topic to discuss with the community members how our ancestors were mistreated by the Catholic nuns and priests in the past?
That's a heavy question to ask of me. I may not be able to complete the answer. I participated in the law enacted in Nebraska that had remained the Pawnees primarily returned to Mother Earth. Because I was involved in the legislation, I was one of the pallbearers. We buried around 1,500 remains of Pawnees across the street from Genoa School. The act itself has had a profound impact on me. I can't talk much about the Canadians. I see the Pawnee children. They were numbers. They didn't have names. So I'm in favor of talking to people about it. But I would have a difficult time. Grief overtook me into city in this other caravan with those children from Carlisle. I felt like a fool sitting there in my wheelchair crying. It had an emotional impact that I couldn't control. We have to deal with it. Make sure it never happens again.
Thanks, Louis. We have about 3 more questions coming from the community, public community members. Who are we starting with? Kenny. Kenny. Starting with Isaac. Sorry. Isaac, the question: where do you stand on mandating all tribal employees and employees of tribal-owned businesses be vaccinated or face termination, exception of spiritual or traditional practicing values?
Repeat that again? Kind of all twisted up there.
Or don't read that part. Oh, okay, don't read. Where do you stand on mandating all tribal employees and employees of tribal-owned businesses be vaccinated or face termination? Or a mask, yeah.
So I guess what you're asking is where I stand if you should have a mask on and be vaccinated in order to work for the tribe. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's pretty much what you're saying. I think that if you look at the numbers right now, I think that it's something that need to start looking at. Right now, I think the last time that I've seen, we're up to 25 plus cases. And the thing is that if you look at it, this virus, it's scary because it knocks out old people a lot. They're the ones that have the knowledge and the stories, the different teachings, and they brought us this far through prayer. That's something that's a real tricky question. It's like, yeah, you could say, hey, fire everybody that's not vaccinated, and then but if you do that, the tribe, one of the things that they've always done in the past was they make a move and they don't have a plan, an outcome plan of that. So you'd have to really sit there and look at that. Now, let me ask you this, to the community members, how do you feel about sheltering in place, to help? If the tribe was to take that step and say, all right, everybody has to have a vaccination or a mask in order to work for the tribe, then what if we turn around and said, all right, everybody has to shelter in place? So it's a double-edged sword. That's a tricky question. I'm all for protecting the people, but at the same time, there's tribal members that have strong beliefs against actually getting a vaccination. And so that's kind of that's a tricky question to try to answer that one. I mean, do you just disown them because they have a strong belief in what they believe in? Do you fire them and make their life more miserable? So those are some good questions, but I think that's something that we'd have to sit down with the health department and really take a look at. We'd have to get information from the public. Again, the people that sit in these seats have no power. It's the power in the people. We got to remember that those that get chosen to sit here at this table, these are sacred seats. So.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Monka, what's your stance on mandating vaccinations and masks for all businesses in Winnebago?
I think it's a question about self-determination and respecting people's rights and their beliefs. I would, when I think about that, it's also a divisive question. It's dividing the country on many levels, and so I'm against things that are divisive. That doesn't unite our people. I understand the science behind the vaccines. We need to acknowledge, though, we have good reason and good absolute empirical reason to be cautious when the United States government says they're going to roll something out to our communities. In the late 80s, my little sister was inoculated with 8 other Ochungada babies. At that time, managed by the federal government. All of those babies died after those inoculations. That government's never been sued for that. But I'll never forget that funeral when we buried my little sister in January. So we have good reason. And remember what I said earlier. There is a declaration of war against non-Christians. And they considered our people that. Now we may be, some of our people may be baptized under their religious construct. But that doesn't mean that we're equal in their eyes. Because our own people have traveled the world across the oceans, educated lawyers to try to get the Pope to revoke that papal bull. And the Pope still has not done so. So what does that tell you? So I think at the end of the day, it's up to our citizenry and self-determination to determine for ourselves what we want for our community and our organizations when it comes to these health issues and health questions. And I support what our people want and what they want. Whatever form that takes, I support that.
Thank you. Rona, what's your stance on mandating vaccinations and masks for all businesses and departments in Winnebago?
Well, it's been as an incumbent, we've been discussing this, all year long and watching what the surrounding communities have been doing. And, a majority of the hospitals are doing the same thing. There are health providers, and WCHS also did that, and they've made exemptions for it. you know, religious or medical beliefs, and also, um, you know, just following the science is really what it is. And with the way society is today, I'm not sure it's, you know, government pushing vaccinations on us. It's our choice to decide and believe that this is going to keep us safe. And as leaders, you know, we are doing the best we can to keep our people safe. You know, by, you know, from top to bottom. I'm pretty sure, you know, all of us, all the leaders at the table, you know, currently have been vaccinated and are ready to take their booster shot. Coming up on Wednesday, I go at 1:20. But that's just the way I believe. I never taken a flu shot, and I've never, you know, because it makes me sick. But at this go around, the way things are going, people are dying. And the rates of our unvaccinated people right now, it's really high. They're the ones that are getting sick. We're losing them because they're getting sick. And with the vaccinated people, their symptoms are less and we're not losing them. So I'm really looking at it, but I'd also like to be open in options of, you know, these certain exemptions and of beliefs. But I would like to see, you know, us mandate with those exceptions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Louis. What's your stance on mandating vaccinations and masks for all businesses and departments in Winnebago?
It takes a hard line. I think everybody should, with some exceptions. The wave is going to hit our children. That's going to cause a lot of grief. It's going to hit us older people. But we've lived our life. It's due. It's coming. But we have to protect children. We have to make people aware. It's the children and the young adults that are causing the problem. We've had deaths in our family. It's painful. Didn't have to be. If Trump would have cut the system, enacted the system that he was left with. But we let it go. We let it go. It's spread all over. So that's why I make the strong stance. Because I don't want to see any of my grandchildren or any of my relatives die needlessly. I don't like to be the hard guy or the mean guy. But I will if it saves my relatives and your relatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Kenny, what's your stance on mandating vaccinations and masks for all business and departments in Winnebago?
I've taken both shots. I don't know if I needed them or not. I don't feel any better or I don't feel any worse. I can still get up every day and go out and do what I want to around my yard and everywhere else. I wouldn't want to push why and how I feel about it on anybody. But there's an old saying, when in Rome, do what the Romans do. And if that mandate is for this tribe, then I think, and I hope that there's good minds that have decided to go that route. I won't really give an opinion on it. It didn't hurt me. I don't think it helped me either. I'm just the same. But I can't judge or determine or second guess anybody's health. First of all, when you're gonna go, you're gonna go. You know, we thank the Lord that there's two things He didn't allow mankind to have control of, and that's the weather and death. And that's how I feel about it.
Thank you. I'm going to start with Monka. Another question from the community. What will you do to increase our police force and uphold our tribal codes and laws?
That's a good question. That goes back to the compacting and self-governance question, utilizing the Self-Determination Educational Assistance Act. So, you know, one of my Degas is retired police. He retired from the police force, and you know, several people in the community, they detail the federal government, when we don't have control of that in management of that service, they detail our police force out. And so that leaves our community vulnerable. And it's another reason why we need to leverage the Self-Determination and Educational Assistance Act to compact the BIA away from the federal government and put it under our control. That would actually help expand the police force. What I would like to add, because I don't know what the budgetary elements are in terms of financing that, but we better be prepared to leverage our tribal tax revenues to help subsidize or supplement their operating budget if we need to. Same thing for the fire department and any of those other community services. So, I mean, in a nutshell, that's my answer to that question. That's what we need to do.
Thank you. Rona, what will you do to increase our police force and uphold our tribal codes and laws?
Currently, we are short-staffed, and it's just due to BIA budgeting and stuff like that. But like, according to the self-determination, and we can contract out that money from BIA, and you know that's part of what we touched on earlier is using that Self-Determination Act and taking back from the BIA, and so that we were able to enforce and regulate ourselves, and by doing that we can update the tribal codes to be able to support our tribal police officers in a way that's, you know, more safety for our community. But just going back to all of that, you know, the funding's there to be able to, you know, BIA, it's just that we would be able to say and operate the police department, you know, at the tribal level. But yeah, change codes to support our police officers and take over from the BIA all the funds that are for, you know, through the treaties. You know, instead of BIA operating in it, we can do it ourselves through the Self-Determination Act.
Thank you. Next to Louis. Question: what will you do to increase our police force and uphold our tribal codes and laws?
I go for the throat. We have to tackle this. It's killing us. It's leaving our streets dangerous. People are dying in our streets, getting beat up. We got meth. We have to compact law enforcement, build our own system, train our own people, get new equipment, get a jail, get everything that goes with the law enforcement system. We have to take the bull by the tail. And get it done. It sounds revolutionary, but it has to be getting away from under the coat of the BIA. We have to do it because we need a law enforcement system that will respond to the needs of the people. I remember the day I was across the street from here. I seen Clyde Story beat the daylights out of George Earth. We had all those things happen in the past. We've got to build a law enforcement system that's good. And we can do it.
Louis, your minute's up. Sorry.
Well, I thought I had 2 more minutes.
Do you want one of my minutes?
Kenny, question. What will you do to increase our police force and uphold our tribal codes and laws?
It's just real simple. Take it away from the BIA and institute a law enforcement department that meets our standards and the state's.
Thank you. Isaac, what will you do to increase our police force and uphold our tribal codes and laws?
So first of all, a lot of the frontliners, the people that have been working through COVID, our people are burned out, whether it's in the health system, law enforcement, fire, police, EMS, facilities. Those guys are the ones that work through this and are still continuing to work through this. But some of the issues that we face today have been there before COVID. One of the things is I would probably find out where the COVID money went, the ARPA money, and then find a way to utilize that and possibly looking at and exploring ideas of how to build a jail, how to build some of these systems back up and get them in working order. One of the things is the law enforcement. They catch a lot of hell for everything, but one of the other things that we're forgetting to look at is the system itself. The system itself is the time that the call comes into the PD, where it's placed, who responds, and then what goes on after that. So whether there's children that are removed from the homes, so it involves human services, the court, the PD, all of those, and you have to be able to look at all of those and find their weak areas and find out how you can bring them up and make them strong again. One of the things is doing that is if you turn around and put some new prosecutors in there, and then revising the law as far as some of the codes. One of the things is habitual offender. About 4 years back, there was not even a code for a turn light. So you could go around and not use your turn light, but the police officers at the time were saying that, hey, we need PC to get into vehicles that are, that if they don't use their turn light, we can't pull them over for that because it's not in tribal code. So if we look at that and then looking at some of the people that would be revising that as far as the legal, make a work group that has to go back and look at that. But how you would start that is you'd go call the police officers in, the ones that we have left, call them in and ask them, hey, what is it that, how could we fix those kind of things? And then start there, low-bearing fruit.
Thanks. This is our last final question, and you only have 1 minute to answer. So Rona, when they head to the polls tomorrow, why should they vote for you?
Last year when I ran, I was, asked by a few supporters to run. And I thought, 1 year, it's just a 1 year term. I'm going to give up my position for a 1 year term. And I knew I needed to do it, so I did it. And so now here I am back. Proved myself in the year that I came to work daily, my work ethic, being there at every meeting. I would like to prove myself more for another 3 years, and my work ethic and my vote and my listening skills to the public and my my constituents. Thank you.
Thank you. On to Louis. When they head to the polls tomorrow, why should they vote for you?
I'm the best bet here. I go to bat for the tribal people. I've done it for tribe, done it for different tribes. You say I'm too old. I'm the same age as George Biden. He has Air Force One. I have a Honda CRV one. If I can do the job, I'll do it till the day I die. I'm not committed.
Thank you. Kenny, when they head to the polls tomorrow, why should they vote for you?
Well, the good news is that everybody around this table has really good ideas. The bad news is that you can't vote for all of them. But if you vote for me, and that's the good news, that you'll get all of those ideas in one person. Blah.
Thank you. Isaac, when they head to the polls tomorrow, why should they vote for you?
I was gonna say something else, but I better be nice. Why they should vote for me? Because one of the first things that you heard when this meeting went on was they said that the full council was vaccinated. And I think in order to start getting this train moving and the tribe moving in the right direction is we need to sit back at the table and have in-person meetings. That can just be amongst the council. That can be nobody in the audience. That could be where we have a screen where we can see them just like what we're doing now. You know, but we need to have that face-to-face contact with each other in order to actually understand and be able to express our true feelings about some of the issues that the tribe has. Those are some of the things ever since they gone virtual, and I know that it's about being safe and all that, and I agree with that, but at the same time it really hindered us and it slowed us down. I mean, we got several different communication devices, cell phones, laptops, computers, and we still can't get the message across from one department to the next, you know. So communication's the key, cooperation and coordination.
Okay, Moonka. When they head to the polls tomorrow, why should they vote for you?
I think our people, I humbly ask for your vote. I share in that shared vision that our relatives articulated for us, and I will continue to advance that shared vision of self-sufficiency, independence, being a free people, not beholden to others. I think that's important. I also think that I'm highly motivated just to get things done. I'm solution oriented, and I think that I have the knowledge that I can bring to the circle and accomplish some of those things to advance that shared vision further. You know, we talk a big game about 7 generations. In the Ho-Chungatta, we've actually been doing that. You know, the things that the foundations that have been built. We need to continue doing that. We need to continue thinking that 7 generations out. That's about 175 years. And so we need to make those decisions today. And also that I support Wanoshkuniwi Ho-Chungatta, that we're all well, and I will continue to advance that in all the ways that we can.
Thank you.
All right, I just want to thank everybody for coming out and, agreeing to do this in person. I know we kind of had a rocky start with our invite, so I appreciate you being patient with this class, and I'm really proud of them. This is the Native American Studies course, one of them that I teach. the contemporary Native American issues. So anyway, thank you again. Thank you, Garen. Thank you to the candidates, and wish you guys luck. And one of our students actually brought some to-go little meal for you. So before you go, please enjoy. Oh,
So, for those that are tuning in, just wanted to let you know, polls open tomorrow at 8 a.m. and they'll close at 8 p.m. Swearing in ceremony is going to be in the gym of the Blackhawk Community Center on Wednesday, and that's going to be at 10 a.m. There will be no audience members. It'll just be council members, and then also just the head principals that are there for that. So tomorrow, elections, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and then swearing in ceremony and reorg, 10 a.m. on Wednesday. So with that, just kind of want to make mention. And folks, have a good night. Thanks.